When I switched from full frame to the Micro Four Thirds system, I'd been taking photos with the full frame system for well over a decade. And I really liked the quality I could get out of full frame cameras. So why did I switch to Micro Four Thirds then? Well, keep watching and I will explain the reason for that in this video. And if you watch till the end, I will tell you if I regret my decision or not. I started taking photography seriously around 2011. At the time, I bought myself a Canon 60D, which was an APS-C camera. It was alright as a first camera, but I soon wanted to upgrade to a full-frame camera because I was really into landscape photography. And I noticed with my Canon 60D that there was a lot of noise in my photos. And I hoped that a full-frame camera would help to resolve this issue of the noise in my photos. So what I did next was that I bought myself a Nikon D800. And the photos that I got out of this camera are still some of my favorite photos. As an example of what I used to do at the time was that I would walk around a forest throughout the whole night and take pictures, like in winter for example, of star trails just above the landscape, of the snow-covered landscape, and just spend the whole night inside this winter wonderland. It was a very meditative approach to photography, and I think in hindsight maybe it wasn't just about photography, but it was kind of like a rite of passage. It was an experience that was meant to make me ready for what was going to happen. Because soon I wasn't going to have almost any time for photography anymore, really. Because at that time, just after these beautiful nights in the forest, I became a father. And suddenly I had no time anymore for photography. So fast forward to around 2 years ago, I started to have a little bit more time for photography again. I was a bit less tired from the sleepless nights. And I started to think really a bit more practically about photography. I love landscape photography. It's not really practical or possible for me to spend entire nights gazing at the stars. It's just not possible. I started to be more interested in macro photography, while I kept doing my landscape photography whenever I had time to do that. So in hindsight, this transition period unfortunately lost me a lot of money. I suddenly had the feeling that my Nikon D800 was very heavy and very big, and that it seemed quite old, you know, when you look at all these new cameras coming out on the market. And then I took an interest in macro photography, which I can do during my lunch breaks because, well, I've got a botanical garden very close to work. And also, when I do go out into nature, most of the time it's with my own family, so the photography gear comes on top of all the usual picnic stuff and sandwiches and things like that you already had, so weight was basically quite important as well. So this leads me to the first reason why I switched from full frame to the Micro Four Thirds system, and that was well, the weight and the size consideration. My Nikon D800 with a 24 to 70 millimeter zoom lens attached was just quite chunky. I was just looking for something which was a little bit lighter. Of course, because there's a smaller sensor, the image quality isn't quite the same. Sometimes when it's a little bit dark, I find that there can be some noise maybe, but it's not the end of the world. I'm really forcing myself to be practical here. Because on the other side, I appreciate the smaller files. They don't fill up my computer so quickly. I mean, I've never been much of a pixel peeper. I don't really print my photos right now. I'm hoping that in the future that will change. But basically for taking pictures on a daily basis without having the disadvantages of like a heavy camera, I think this is quite a good compromise. And I don't exclude that in the future I will explore a bigger sensor system again. Yeah, especially when you look at the lack of development in the Micro Four Thirds system at the moment, but you never know. So after the weight consideration, the second reason why I switched from full frame to Micro Four Thirds was that I was taking really an interest into macro photography, and I find that for that Micro micro four thirds is just perfect. One challenge I found with my full frame cameras when I was taking pictures of flowers was that often the photos weren't very sharp. And with the micro four thirds system, with these smaller sensors, I find it much easier to have precise focus on the flowers, on the details. I'm also not a big fan of using tripods when I'm taking pictures of flowers, because I just want to use different compositions, different possibilities for my photos. And with a big and heavy camera, it's just really difficult to do so, I find. And with my Olympus camera, it's just small enough, and it's got the in-body stabilization, and it's really quite easy to take lots of different experiential shots and keep the best afterwards. Because the other thing is that I have noticed that I tend to get bored pretty easily. So if I put my camera on a tripod and make very small adjustments, I just can't take photos like that. I have to move around, try different things out. And yes, not every photo will be great. I will maybe have one keep out of 30 or 40 photos. But it's just my style of taking photos. I like having this nimble, small kind of camera. So this brings me to my third and actually the most important reason why I switched from full frame to micro four thirds. And that's the cost consideration. Now that's a little bit ironic, because I did lose quite a lot of money when I was trying out different cameras and switching from full frame to a different one until I find the system which is working really well for me now. But I just noticed that at least on the second-hand market, you can get some really nice cameras, like for example the Olympus camera that I'm using to take flowers at the moment. Like with full frame, I really had to think very carefully about which lens I was going to get next, and if I could upgrade the camera body or not. Now with these micro four thirds systems, I find that I can easily, for the price of one full frame body and lens in the past, I can now buy myself like 3 lenses for the same price, and that's really quite an advantage, I find. The great thing is that the lenses that I do end up buying tend to be much smaller. So with full frame, I had to really decide, am I going to take this lens or that lens, because it was going to weigh me down a lot. But with micro four thirds, not only can I buy more lenses, but I can actually take them with me, because they just fit into my bag and they're not going to break my back. Okay, so to be honest, I would not recommend to everybody to just ditch your full frame system and start using micro four thirds cameras. That really depends on your current situation. For me, it was the right thing to do right now. But as my situation evolves, I might look into larger sensors in the future. But I think that for me, right now, here, it's a really great compromise. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure that I see all these advantages in the latest developments of the micro four thirds systems. However, there's one of the older micro four thirds cameras that really grabbed my interest, because it ticked all of the boxes that I mentioned in this video. So check out this next video, in which I will tell you which camera I ended up buying and why I think that it would be interesting for you too.